Surviving architecture school is not easy. After being in the industry for over 16 years and getting my license, I still remember my time in architecture school. I remember pulling those all-nighters, working on studio projects day and night, seeing the sunrise and the sunset during that time, and then having to attend all the other courses while trying to stay awake, and commuting to and from the architecture building and falling asleep on those buses and streetcars all the time. There's a lot of things that I wish I knew that would have made that experience a lot easier and more effective. And in this video, I'm gonna share with you 5 tips that I wish I knew and would have made that experience a lot smoother. And let's get started. All-nighters. Now, all-nighters is something within architecture school that is considered a badge of honor. How many all-nighters can you pull? It's almost a competition within architecture school. And I want to mention this, that if you're in architecture school or perhaps you're looking to get into architecture school, try to avoid this. Looking back now, I can tell you that the work that I was doing at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m., 5 a.m. was absolutely garbage. And it's because you're exhausted by that time, and anything I find that's done beyond midnight is not good work, and you should go to sleep and then just continue in the morning. Get 6 hours of sleep, or 8 hours is a bit of a luxury when you're in architecture school, but if you can pace yourself to get 6 hours of sleep and start on your assignments early, and then you avoid having to do all-nighters. And I found that with all-nighters, you actually are prone to more accidents. And what do I mean by that? I remember once working on a physical model out of wood at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was working all day, into the early morning, and I was trying to get this done for a presentation at 9 a.m. And as I was gluing things together with a hot glue, I was trying to clean up some of the corners, and the glue was heaping hot. I went in with my fingers, and what did I do? I burned my fingers completely because I wasn't really thinking. I was just exhausted at that point, and so I thought it was a good idea to put my fingers in the hot glue. Well, what happened was I was injured afterwards. I had a 2nd-degree burn, and I could not physically finish that assignment. I couldn't finish the physical model. So I wouldn't recommend that. Had I gotten some sleep, a few hours, and continued to build that model, I would have made it, I would have finished the assignment, and I would have been able to make the presentation. So I do not recommend getting into this culture of pulling all-nighters. It is not healthy. And moving forward, you should look into pacing yourself and organizing your workflow so that you can meet the assignments and get your sleep. It is possible. Time management. Now, to avoid those all-nighters, you need to have better time management. Now, I remember when I was in architecture school, I hated this word, time management. It annoyed the hell out of me because I just remember thinking and looking at the amount of work that I had to do, and I only had 24 hours. And I needed to sleep, I needed to eat, I needed to commute, I needed to attend all the classes, and I was in class from 9 to 6 p.m. and then I had to do all the studio work. So how was I supposed to keep up with this all? And I thought that the answer to that was, hey, all-nighters. And so that's the culture of architecture school, but there is a way. There's a way to be more effective and productive by being careful with your time and managing that time wisely, looking at your assignments and looking at your calendar and really planning things out so that you're able to get that sleep and also complete your assignments and be effective in the process. Because again, pulling those all-nighters, it doesn't help you to manage your time better. And so it's important to have that understanding of your time management and be careful with your time and try to allocate your hours according to the credits. So for example, what do I mean? Studio is typically worth double the credit. And in that case, I would make sure that 80% or 70% of your time is spent on studio. And then I would distribute the remaining of your time to the other courses because they are worth a lot less in comparison to studio. Really prioritizing what's important and then starting to allocate your time wisely is really important. And time management is your friend. Focus on the process and storytelling. This is one thing I wish I knew. Not focusing so much on the outcome of the project, that final product, but rather thinking about that story and storytelling and looking at the process of getting there. So how you start to develop that concept, looking at the history of the site and taking those elements to the concept and starting to build that process, which begins to shape the building and take take place. And so that also starts to build your story so that when you start to present your project, you can really tell this story and show your process. And I find that everyone starts to really connect with the building and with that project if you have a strong story, if you have a strong process. And I wish I knew that one ingredient, because my studio projects would have been so much better if I just knew that when I was starting architecture school. Now, I learned this the hard way, but do not have a full-time job. And this is something that if you don't have experience, you don't know right away. The program is very intense and it really requires your full focus and your full attention. And even giving your full attention, it's difficult to keep up. It's important not to have a full-time job or even a part-time job. Now, if you do have to get a job in order to pay for your tuition and in order to pay your living expenses, then I would recommend getting a job that's within the campus and ideally within the architecture building. Eat healthy. Now, this sounds quite simple, but it's not that easy when you're in the zone in your work and you're just focusing and learning and you just end up eating whatever and fast food and whatever you can find. And sometimes it's what you can afford, but it's important to take into consideration that, again, architecture is a marathon. This is not a race. So how you start to build these little habits now when you're getting into architecture and you're building your experience in architecture school and you're learning, that carries on. And whatever you do now affects you later on. So it's important to stay healthy, eat healthy, make sure you get your fruits and your vegetables. Have a smoothie where you can get everything all in one shot because you don't have time. There's ways around it, and I think being mindful of that is very important, because if you're not taking care of your body and your mind, then you're not going to be able to perform your best on those projects. So really do take some time for yourself. Now, this is a bonus, but try to live close to the campus and ideally as close as possible to the architecture building. Now, I would say not more than 30 minutes by bus. I did this mistake early on when I was in architecture school, and I lived about over an hour away, and I had to take a bus, a subway, and a streetcar, and I had to transfer a few times. That with architecture school was awful. I was falling asleep on all the buses, all the trains, and just transferring constantly, and you're exhausted and you're spending 1 hour to and from. That goes to 2+ hours. Sometimes the buses are late. I can go on. That was not wise, and it also takes away from your energy. You're exhausted more. So this is something that, again, I didn't realize how intense architecture school was and how important it was to select housing as close as possible to the campus. Now, I wouldn't really recommend being on campus because A, it's very expensive unless you can, but you could find housing close and around 30 minutes away. I found to be a nice mix. Anything more than that just becomes too much of an issue, and if you can go 15 or 10 minutes, even better. But anything more than 30 minutes just becomes a bit of an issue. If you'd like more information about my experience doing my master's degree at UBC, I would recommend this video here. And if you'd like to support the channel and you got value out of the video, you can subscribe here. I hope to see you on the next video. Until then, bye!